Jaguar outside my door.
It should get the blood circulating. If you can't do 40 push-ups, there's something wrong with you. That gives me great pleasure to introduce a very special guest, an unexpected guest really, that's come all across the Atlantic. And a few years ago I was introduced by my friend DJ and Mervyn over here, who's our orb expert, our resident orb expert, and Mike van Niekerk. And while I'm at this, I want to first also thank all the people that have been involved in helping put this together, from Al in the front, and Mervyn and DJ and Willem and Mike van Niekerk and whoever else. Thank you, and Daryl, for helping to put this together, and you know, the little things that we forget. Thank you very much for your help and assistance. These things are not easy to put together, and it takes a lot of coordination and a lot of little things. And so a few years ago I was introduced to this thing called Project Camelot, and it suddenly opened up a whole new world to discovery. And for those of you that do not know about Project Camelot, I don't know what you're doing here. Obviously you came to see Willem. So thank you for coming. Project Camelot is probably one of the finest dam busting projects and exposure projects ever launched, and I suggest you go home and log on to projectcamelot.org and discover a new world of information that blows open every single conspiracy you've ever heard of. Information that you can't even believe exists, all exists on projectcamelot.org. And the person behind that is this lady here, Kerry Cassidy. A big round of applause. Over the last few years, Kerry and her partner, well now her ex-partner, Bill Ryan, have interviewed some of the most controversial figures in world politics, secret societies, contactees, ufology, politicians, you name it, they've interviewed them and got a body of evidence of human history and what's going on in the universe that truly blows the mind. So I think Kerry is going to just take this, we're going to wing this here really, she's going to show you a bunch of stuff, but my main reason to bring her here, because she was in South Africa, to come to look at our ancient civilizations and the stone ruins of Southern Africa and the link to the Anunnaki, because as Kerry says herself, she's on the trail of the Anunnaki, trying to find out where the hell they were at, what they were up to, and we believe we've got the evidence of the Anunnaki right here. So over to Kerry Cassidy, and question time as well. Thank you very much, Kerry.
Hi there. I really appreciate you guys staying all the way through. I can't even imagine how you could sit through everything and freeze to death in the process. I live north of, just in Southern California, and this temperature is you know, really blowing my mind. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is play something, a very short thing, just an introduction. Can you raise your hand if you have not heard of Project Camelot? Oh my God, okay, so we have a crowd of neophytes, just kidding. But at any rate, this will introduce you briefly to us, and we cannot put this on film, so we cannot release this to the internet or on DVD because it has copyrighted music beneath it, but it is a trailer for a Project Camelot interview we did. We interviewed an indigo child called Boriska. We went all the way to Russia, to Moscow and to Leningrad, and interviewed Boriska. And it was quite an unbelievable experience. Okay, so that was Briska, and he is a fascinating child. He was a child who had total past life recall of a life on Mars. And he just started talking to his mother and to the villagers in a small town in Russia all about his prior life on Mars, how he was flying spaceships and how wars were happening on Mars and how they were turning Jupiter into a second sun and how their civilization was destroyed and then how he reincarnated on Earth. And he also used to walk the streets of the small town and give advice about healing, about how they could live better lives. And this is when he was 7 years old and younger. And then as he grew older, he sort of became more human-like, if you will. We interviewed him when he was 12, and he was not remembering as well some of the things he had actually done and talked about, but he had seen future scenarios of what was going on Earth. He is what's called an indigo child, and those children are plentiful around the planet at this time. They're often called indigos or crystal children. There are different age groups. Some of us, even in the audience, will be early indigos. I consider myself one. We will be people that came to the planet with certain knowledge about the future, about what's going to be happening in 2012, about Earth changes, and so on. And so now, Project Camelot. I'm just going to go through stuff very quickly here. Most of the time when I address a crowd, they know who we are and what we do. I did see that, I'm in South Africa, and I do understand that a lot of people came to see Michael Tellinger and Willem. I can't speak Latino very well, Willem, and so on. But these are going to be slides that will sort of introduce you to what we do. We basically, about 4 years ago, put together a project in which I was a filmmaker and my partner that I had just met, Bill Ryan, that you see in this short film, we met. I picked up a camcorder, and he was a webmaster. He was representing a project called Serpo.org, and he had become the webmaster. I had picked up a camcorder, consumer grade, and just decided to start doing interviews. I had been working in Hollywood for over 19 years. I was writing screenplays, sci-fi screenplays, trying to write a screenplay, in fact, about the Anunnaki. And I got frustrated. I was trying to package movies. I got the rights to an option, what's called an option on the rights to make the Wingmakers movie, which was based on wingmakers.com, a very popular cult website that I encourage all of you to take a look at. It's still out there, very interesting story. There's a book associated, music, paintings. But it's all about a scientist who was part of the Black Project, who escapes from the Black Project, who discovers information about an alien civilization that was trying to warn the humans of a future invasion by a race of robots that were intent on taking over the Earth. And he was basically bent on preventing it. So were this group called the Wingmakers. At least that's the story on the wingmakers.com website. So at any rate, I pitched that. I got some places with it. I took it to Spielberg, who was already aware of the project, through his development person, Kathleen Kennedy. I took it to James Cameron, and the director of the Terminator. And I also got it to Ridley Scott, and it was turned down everywhere. But it was a great, great story, and so I figured at that point I really needed to do something else. I couldn't approach changing the world the way I wanted to at that time to make movies and change people's mindsets. So like I said, I picked up a consumer-grade camcorder. I started going to UFO conferences, thinking I would interview people, especially the speakers, just put a camera in their face, do guerrilla filmmaking. And I had been to film school and so on, studied directing, studied acting, and so that was my background. When I met Bill Ryan, I interviewed him. These are some of the people we've interviewed over the years. He was from England, and he, like I said, he was a webmaster. So I was a writer, he was a writer. We put our skill sets together. We decided that we wanted disclosure. We wanted to have the government and have the world become aware of the alien presence or the presence of ETs on our planet, and as well as break the truth out about a lot of things, basically sort of reveal the underpinnings of the Matrix. If you saw the movie The Matrix, you'll know what I mean. So that was our objective, and we had an incredible experience. We traveled the world, still doing it, obviously. And we interviewed the most outrageous witnesses, people that were scientists, engineers, people that worked in black projects. We set ourselves up as being a place where whistleblowers from the Matrix, which is what I call them, they're not your traditional just whistleblowers in a job. They're actually whistleblowers that are trying to tell you the truth about what's really happening around you on this planet. And so I call them whistleblowers. And they would come to us and they would tell us their stories, and we would vet them as much as possible. But what we do at Project Camelot is called witness testimony. So if you haven't seen our videos, we put the camera right there in a room with them. We let them talk for 2 hours. I ask them questions. Sometimes I probing questions. And we basically let the audience decide. You decide if you think they're telling the truth or not. But it's a lot like being right in the room with them, because you have the camera right there. And I don't cut things out of what they say. Whatever they say is on the film. The only editing is a cutting between me as the interviewer and the person. And Bill would back me up with the second camera. Occasionally, he had a science background, so we were actually opposites. I came from the arts and an esoteric background in which I studied Eastern philosophy, the occult, and I brought that to the table, whereas Bill came from the direction of science. He had a degree in physics, and so the two of us as a team were kind of a union of opposites, and it really worked well in vetting and trying to interview and bring the information to the public. So these are some of the basic questions you need to ask yourself about what's really going on here. As you will begin to have seen from Michael's presentation, that there is something going on here. There are certain things being hidden from you. These amazing ruins here that I came down to film. I'm actually filming a documentary at this time of Michael, sort of Adam's calendar, and we saw it on the solstice. I was flown over the ruins and then interviewing Michael as we go along, simply because I was very interested in the link up to the work of Zecharia Sitchin and the possibility that this Adam's calendar is indeed the birthplace of the genetic engineering of humanity, of who you are today. And we have much information that documents through witness testimony. These are extremely intelligent people. Some have degrees, some have experience in all different areas. And you'll see that what happens is the threads or the pieces of the puzzle are starting to all link up. And what we're trying to do is paint the big picture. We're painting the big picture of what is going on here on Earth, how off-world civilizations, ETs, corporate entities, how all of that works together, and what's going on to keep humanity down and locked into what is, in essence, a dumbed-down state of awareness on this planet with a purpose behind it. And we track it. We track the modus operandi, if you will, of the Illuminati and the big banks, the people that own all the money and all the that run, like BP oil. And we are getting some amazing. We got amazing information. And again, we are at, the reason that any of this is important at this time is that we are actually, as the Earth moving from 3D into 4D, and possibly 5D from what I understand, and you are all going to go through this transition. It's all happening now. Some of you are more aware of it than others, I'm sure. This will mean physiological changes for you. It will mean changes in your DNA, and you can help activate that and help move that along. There's a lot of evidence to the effect, and this is what Michael has been investigating, that the Anunnaki, who were here originally, part of the genetic engineering of humanity, actually purposely dumbed you down. In other words, you have all the strands of DNA you need. However, a lot of them are actually, they call them junk DNA, but they haven't been activated. That's the only problem. What you need to do is activate it. You do that through meditation, through raising your vibration, through knowledge, the gaining of knowledge. As one of our witnesses, George Green, says, gain all knowledge. It's one of the first rules. And what knowledge and awareness does to you is it actually changes your vibration. Just knowing. You don't actually have to act on it. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is learn something new, and it changes your vibration and raises it. And then you can actually change the vibration of the people in the room. The number of people here that actually know the stuff I'm already talking about will already be changing the vibration of the people that have come who don't know anything about it, simply by association. So we've got the controllers of the planet, the Illuminati, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, so on. The Greys, behind that we've got the Greys and Reptilians, what we call the service to self, okay? And then the other thing keeping you down is what we are in is the 3D world, or another word for it is the Matrix. So the question is, if you want to know what's really going on, and you decide to go on that journey, there are some things you have to, some things you can use to help you to find out what's going on. You can use whistleblowers from inside black projects. You can have your own ET contact, and a lot of people are channeling and getting information, and some of it's actually false. Some of it's just part of the matrix. It's part of this sort of universal mind, but it's like goes around and around and around it like a whirlpool of information, but it never takes you outside the matrix. It's still locked down into the matrix. And then there's also the possibility of channeling your higher self, tapping into other dimensions, and so on. So these are ways to find out what's really going on. If you just get what is book learning or things that scientists tell you or has been told through the ages, you're actually getting a sort of limited view of reality. They are steering you in the colleges and school and religion, every which way you look. You are being sort of locked down to a certain way of thinking that will keep you inside the box and limit your possibilities. So there's a big, in the scientific community especially, but in general, there's sort of channelers are considered to be a no-no. And one of the things that I like to point out is that a lot of our whistleblowers at some point are actually getting information from somewhere outside themselves. They're either channeling, Tesla was said to be channeling. He was said to be given information from off-world that augmented a lot of his, basically scientific inspiration many times is information coming in from other places. But these are a list of some of our interviewees. We have so much. We have over, I think, probably over 150 to 200 hours of video footage on our website at this time. It's all free, by the way. One of the things we decided to do was to make everything available for free, because we felt that you had a right to know. And so that's the first thing we did. Now we have the option of possibly making DVDs and so on like that, and at some point, we do take donations, and that's how I got here. Because we work at this full time, and it also takes money to produce these projects, as you can appreciate. The equipment costs money, and I'm a film editor, so I edit the thing, but all my hours of all my days are taken up with this. And so we ask for donations. We do quite well that way, although with the downturn in the economy, things have sort of tightened up, so it's become a little more difficult. Starting to take a bit of advertisements from positive, quarters on the website, on the main website, but that's about it for now. According to Dan Burish, who Willem talked about briefly, he's one of our witnesses, and he's talking about there being two timelines and that we're at a decision point. That's one of the views of what's going on here. It's quite in depth. I cannot possibly go into it here, but just very quickly going through this. And what I want to do is, the idea originally was just to have you ask me questions, but if you don't know anything about what we do, it'd be hard to ask questions. Now there will be some people in the crowd that do know what we do, and I'm happy to take questions, even from people who have no idea. Dan Burish worked in what's called S4 or Area 51 in the United States. He was said to work with what was in essence an alien from another planet, working with that alien who was trying to recover their DNA, some skin problems that they had. The Greys and certain other races are called regressives. They're actually using your DNA, and this is what the abductions are about. This is what some of the genetic engineering that's still going on, by the way, is all about. And if you don't know about this side of reality, the real reality, it's time to sort of wake up and start investigating, because I can assure you that you will have evidence in your own life of times in which you have gotten sort of tripped over something, or you've had an out-of-body experience, or you've heard something or seen something you weren't supposed to, whether it be a craft or whatever, and it will trip you out of, into the deep hole of like Alice in Wonderland, and basically you will be on your way down the rabbit hole, and if you follow that out, you start investigating. Believe me, the truth is far stranger than fiction could ever be. We have one of our whistleblowers called Henry Deacon. I went on stage with him in Barcelona, where we were attending and invited to interview some of the attendees, and he got on stage after Bob Dean spoke, and he basically said he had been on Mars. He was somebody who'd worked in black projects. We got to know him very, very well. We met people from his work. We basically vetted him extremely well. He was who he said he was. He's gone underground since then. One of the important things to understand about working with whistleblowers is that they are running from the government for all intents and purposes. And what we do and what our motto is that the best place to hide is out in the open. And what that means is that if you have a secret, you're much less likely to get bumped off if you become famous. And I'm actually encouraging Michael to become more famous, because he has some other plans that are really going to ruffle the feathers of the powers that be as time goes on, and therefore that's your absolute best security, because obviously they don't want to make a martyr of you, so it's less likely they're going to bother you if you're really out front there. Then if you're hesitant, you're worried about your family and all this kind of thing, which whistleblowers are, and it's understandable. They tend to only want to put like half a foot forward, and that's it. That's when things become dangerous, because they can be manipulated, and they'll come forward with testimony, and then they'll get it back and they'll deny it. Sometimes we get phone calls and they tell us, forget it, I didn't say that, even though it's on film, and they'll be scared. Or whatever. So it's really important to understand that there's a whole psychology of whistleblowers, and because we've been involved in this now for over 4 years actually, and really it's like a 24/7 job. It's not something that I do part-time. It's my whole life. Actually, I had somebody calling me last night. Here, the time difference, they were calling me from America. They called me 3 times on my cell phone in the middle of the night here, not knowing I was in South Africa. They were desperate to talk to me, to tell me a secret about what's really going on with the BP oil spill. I can tell you what it is, you know, and then I was at the airport. Magnetic anomaly that has cropped up in the Gulf of Aden, which is, for all intents and purposes, for those that know and understand, a stargate. And they have cordoned off the whole area in a 3-mile radius. No one goes in or out. It's surrounded by ships from all the different military around the world, Russia, China, I mean, you name it, they're out there. And there was also what we were told was they called it a Mexican standoff at one point, in which the United States wanted to send a ship into this Stargate, in which case the ship could actually, if you know the Philadelphia experiment, the ship could actually disappear. It's also like the Bermuda Triangle. That's what a Stargate or a vortex that's, you know, that's created can do. It simply would disappear. I mean, you don't know if the people would come back or what would happen. At any rate, the other countries didn't want that to happen. They were nervous, whatever. So supposedly it has not happened. But that's the kind of thing going on behind your backs. They have military, they have troops there. You know, it's an incredible situation. And so to get back to the BP oil spill, I can tell you all about that from the whistleblower point of view. And I've gotten several very legitimate sources, even whistleblowers that I've known and vetted, giving me information about that behind the scenes. Pretty amazing stuff. First of all, the BP oil spill was done on purpose. That's not an accidental leak. They knew they were drilling. Actually, they had geological reports from geologists for the last 5 years telling them that that was unstable ground in which to drill. They ignored it. And this is from insiders that work for BP. Now you have to understand that those people have all been forced to sign non-disclosure agreements. They are not allowed to come forward and tell you what's really going on. And that's true of a lot of people that aren't even working for BP, but are in the general area. They've locked the whole area down. You can't fly over it, so you can't verify anything that's going on there. The other thing is that the ocean floor is cracking. That there's pressure there. A lot of people who know Richard Hoagland will know that he went on to Coast Radio and said that there was a building of a methane gas bubble. I had that verified that this is true. There is pressure building. They had, BP said, the whistleblower that I got today was saying that it is what they call an active well, and that they have no intention of blocking it off, capping it, as they call it. That they have all the technology necessary to do that. And we've got people in Camelot writing to us, begging us, oh, I know how to close that well, you know, oil spill, and I know how to cleanse it and use microbes and all this great stuff. The fact is, they don't want it to be closed off. This has been done on purpose. The reason is because the leaking there and the mixture with this chemical that they're also spraying around there, which I don't know, I have to look at my notes to get that exact name of it, but it's all in the news, is also toxic. And that what's going to happen is that the methane bubble is going to burst at any time, that in essence, it could blow with or without the help of a nuclear device. And that if it does, it's very likely to send toxic chemicals all over Texas and the surrounding area. You're going to have a disaster of unconceived of proportions. There's also, from what I understand, this is another whistleblower who's telling me that there's a buildup of gases that are leaking to the surface in Texas and other surrounding areas that have basically, the fire that will happen when this thing blows will connect with these leaking gases on land and send rivers of fire up, headed straight for the Yellowstone supervolcano. That will blow, be triggered and blow, and that will trigger the ring of fire volcanoes on the west coast and down, into South America. And what you basically get as a result of all that is Armageddon. You get what the Illuminati are planning for, okay? And so I got this phone call late last night, and this person is saying to me, you got to understand what's really going on. He's saying that basically, see, the other thing is that there's a big push right now, if you're reading the news, because the Soviets talked about it and all this, they take a nuclear bomb to close off the well. Okay, this nuclear bomb will trigger exactly what I just told you about as well. With or without the methane bubble, the nuclear bomb will trigger this and give you all the same results, and basically, bring on Armageddon. It will also, another thing that's happening is that oil is headed up the east coast of the United States. It's going to go over to Iceland because it's going to be taken what's called the Northwest Conveyor. And this is scientific proof of this having been done in the past. There is a Northwest conveyor, and it goes up in this direction, then it comes down the coast of Europe. And the idea is to also isolate Europe, to make Russia, because if you know the prophecies in Billy Meyer and you know the way things are going, you know that Russia inevitably is going to end up running Europe. And that Russia and the US and China are about to face off in Iran. So you have to understand how all of these things work together, and that the Illuminati have an agenda that's like dominoes. They use supercomputers that are underground in Colorado called Cray computers, and they figure out if one thing happens, what's the spiraling effect of all of that using computers. They can target the future effects of every single action that they might make. And so they have plotted this stuff way ahead of time. Years and years have gone into this. And if you go back, the reason I'm here with Michael tonight is because in the end, according to our witnesses and according to all the information we've been getting, and that I've been getting lately, the trail takes you back to who is running the Illuminati from behind the scenes. Because the Illuminati, yeah, they're bad in general, white men who have a lot of money, who want to rule the world and do. But on top of that, who's ruling them? Who's running their game? And what you have to find out is that ultimately, what's behind the scenes are these off-world cultures, these people known as the Anunnaki, very likely, that Zachariah Sitchin talks about in his books. There's two brothers, Enki and Enlil. They were more or less at odds with each other. Enki was more the positive side. He wanted, when they genetically engineered you, he wanted humanity to grow and become intelligent and be educated and so on. Whereas Enlil wanted power over the humanity. He wanted humanity to simply get the gold from the mines and do the job that he wanted them to do. And ultimately, there's so much behind what I'm saying here now that I know that if you've never heard any of this stuff, I'm going to sound like the most crazy person you ever listened to. All I can say is that if you think I'm crazy, take some time out. I've told people who've lost whole weekends watching my videos. Watch the videos, one right after the other. It will paint a picture that you can just, good luck trying to talk yourself out of it once you've heard the information. It's really mind-boggling. So in many ways, what Michael's doing is just the tip of the iceberg. It goes a lot farther than that, a lot farther than a few sites out there that you aren't privy to. The fact that they, I mean, why isn't Adam's calendar a huge national, landmark the way the Giza is and the way Stonehenge is? The power out there, I was out there with Michael. I'm an intuitive, I can feel the energy in my hands. Tremendous. I mean, he has documented evidence of, the electromagnetic power out there. You get the same thing at the pyramids, huge electromagnetic power in the pyramids. Same principles at work there as what Michael was talking about, sound frequencies. How do you think the pyramid stones really got to the pyramid? How do you think they really built those pyramids? They moved those stones with sound. And the same thing happened down here. So what's happening is humanity is waking up, and this is your only chance, is to wake yourself up and your friends and your family and so on. You can't force them. You can lead a horse to water, but can't make them drink, as they say. But I do encourage you to do so. There is a plot to keep you down, to make sure that you die early, that you die of diseases. And they are basically locking the prison doors as we speak. Things are becoming even worse as you just look around the planet. I don't have to convince you of that, I don't think. We're polluting our planet, we're making it unlivable. They know what's going on, they're behind it. They have gone off-world in some cases. They have gone to Mars and built underground civilizations. There's a secret space program that you know nothing about that's operating. Some of those UFOs that you see are definitely owned by the government. I mean, this is all information we have. It's mind-boggling. And it's fascinating. So it will also, it'll change your world, change your life, and maybe we might be able to save humanity in the process, because we are at risk at the moment on this planet. And if you don't believe me now, there are going to be some things happening beyond the BP oil spill that will show this for sure in the near future. It's not about fear, because you have to understand that you are all souls and you are all eternal. And you all have powers that you have never recognized that are absolutely amazing. Each and every one of you has amazing gifts that you may not have actualized even in this life. But you all have prior lives. You've been here before, and you may come back again on this 3D, the Earth. I mean, and there's so many dimensions to what I'm saying now. But take my word for it, you have an amazing, amazing powers and gifts, and your minds are very, very powerful. This is what the Illuminati do not want you to know. They want to keep you dumb and dumber, and they make movies to prove it. Okay, so we've got all sorts of stuff here, but I think I'll just open up for questions now. I have no idea how long I've been talking. And I'm sorry to have to kind of throw all this at you like that and just kind of walk away, but there is something called the Iron Mountain Report that basically tells you, word for word, that one thing the Illuminati love to do is to tell you what they're going to do before they do it. Apparently the accident at BP was shown in a movie with Nicolas Cage called Knowing. It was made like a year or two ago. It's all over the web, go to YouTube, watch the clip, and you'll see what I mean. It's not, it's not a fantasy. They showed you. They showed you what they planned. And they just think you're too dumb to get it. And then if you're smart enough to get it, they start to respect you. So far, we haven't been killed, we haven't been knocked off. We're pushing the envelope as far as it'll go. And, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow, but basically, it's a fascinating time to be alive. You all incarnated to be here now for this show that you're all a part of. You can decide what side you're on. You can decide to close your eyes and put your head in the sand like an ostrich. That's cool. It's all your choice. But I'm going to tell you it's going to get very, very exciting from this point on, if it's not exciting enough for you at the moment. And we'll see what happens. So thank you very much for listening, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to oblige.
And you've opened You told us what we've been studying, both Ed and myself, and for a long time. We know a lot about what you're talking about, and I just am so grateful that so many more people are going to learn about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's very cool.
Yellowstone, which we erupted, which is a enormous mega volcano, that would be native world. You said Armageddon, but I mean,
Well, it's
wouldn't there be a dust cloud that would cut out the sun and
we don't know. There have been super volcanoes that have erupted before. I forget what it's called, Krakatoa. Maybe that was one.
Lake Toba.
Yeah,
About 70,000 years ago.
You know, like I said, this is information we're getting. Now, we have also been told there's more activity at Yellowstone. The thing that's happening is that it's very involved, but we are entering a part of space. We have waves. We are entering a super wave. We're going into alignment with the galactic center. You may have heard of that. The Earth is basically moving into a place where it has been in a cyclical way in the past. But all of these elements are coming together at this time to combine to either make or break the next move as to where we're going as a planet. And therefore, it is possible, yes, that the super volcano could erupt, that it could trigger all the other Ring of Fire volcanoes, and that we could have what is called an extinction level event on the planet. Now, there's reasons why we may not have that. There are positive ETs as well as negative. There you have, you know, positive spirits behind you as well as negative, trying to ruin your day. And so it's not a lost cause. If it was a lost cause, I wouldn't be here. So the fact of the matter is I'm telling you their plan. We're telling you what could happen. The reason you need to know that the nuclear bomb is not a solution is so that you can, you know, is these things that we're being told. In other words, that there is an escaping of gas, that there is a methane global, that you know, the cracks are in the ocean floor. These are potential things that could happen as a result of this BP oil spill. In other words, it could escalate. It's bad enough now, it could get worse. But you need to know about it. That's going to be halfway there to preventing it. Because what they want, and this gets back to the whistleblower who called me last night, and I think that this was absolutely right on. You see, what happens is that the positive ETs, if you put a call out to them, they will come. They will help you. Okay, behind the scenes, they will work with you, but you must ask. Okay, one of you will know from Star Trek, and so non-intervention is their policy normally. They want humanity to grow on its own, to protect itself, to do the work necessary to progress. Okay, but if we ask for their help, they will be there. So that's number one. The other thing is that this situation is something that we're all going to have to work together. In other words, this is about unity. You heard Willem talking about unity and how important unity is. We as a planet have to start to realize that we are one, that all these divisions among us are just illusions, and that it's a divide and conquer strategy by the Illuminati and by the powers that be that want to take over the earth. Never reason for taking over the earth. They want the riches here. They want the planet. There are stones in Georgia, the Georgia Guidestones, that say very plainly that the Illuminati have carved into it so that everyone can just walk up there and look at it. And it says they want to bring the population down to, I think the number is 500 million. And that means they have to get rid of a whole bunch of you, because, I don't know, what's the population of the planet?
7 billion.
6.8 billion, something like that.
Okay, so you do the math. That means getting rid of a lot of the people. Okay, how are they going to do that? They've got to starve them, they need big earth changes, but what they're doing right now is they're actually using the natural forces of change that are entering the planet at this time to their favor, to get out of it what they want. Okay, that's their objective. Now, as souls, you came here because this is a time when people are going to wake up just like that. It's happening all over the world, and it's happening so rapidly. It's an amazing thing to see people start to wake up. Everything changes in their life, everything. And enlightenment is within reach for many, many people. And that's going to change the face of the earth. They will lose their power if this happens. We will completely change our monetary system, you name it. They will not have control of you if you know who you really are. And they're terrified of that. So if you don't go to a 9-to-5 job, they're in trouble. You understand? If you don't use oil in your car, you know, if oil doesn't run this planet, if free energy runs this planet, if you don't have to pay to live and pay your rent and just to survive, if people aren't starving, they've got a problem. They've got a, you know, population going up. There are ways to live on the planet with whatever population you have. There are other planets to go to. We have all kinds of technology. Our whistleblowers from black projects tell us that the military's black projects are maybe even 10,000 years ahead of the way you're living today. This is 2010, okay? And we're still driving around in these crazy combustion engines and polluting our environment. I mean, didn't you think when you were a kid that there would be flying cars by this time? I did, you know. I thought when I grew up the world would be, you know, space age. We would be amazing. Well, it didn't happen, did it? We're just sort of plodding along. Thank God for the internet. At least there was something.
So, Kerry, you're really talking about a contributionist society. I had to bring that in.
I know. I figured you would. So anyway, that, you know, it is very complex, and I appreciate that. You know, who knows what's going to happen? We just don't know. There's going to be what's called a CME from the sun. The sun is going through all kinds of physiological changes. If you listen to David Wilcock, you'll find out, and Richard Hoagland, you'll find out scientific basis. Every planet in the solar system is heating up, is going through changes, amazing changes. It's not because of global warming on Earth that the changes are happening on Jupiter and Mars and Saturn and so on. Something is happening on this universe, to this planet, to where we're going. This entire solar system is going through a change, and you're all part of it.
How much contact have you had with David Icke?
Just hold on, let's just, if you want to ask a question, put your hand up, I'll bring the microphone so everybody can hear it.
I was asking how much contact you've had with David Icke.
Well, we did an interview with him, so I encourage you to watch our interview with him. I'm very good friends with one of his ex-wives, Pamela, and Bill is quite good friends with David Icke, so quite a bit of contact.
And David is coming here. I have more of a comment as a question. The committee of 300 have kids. What's interesting about the kids is that they're rebelling against their parents.
Absolutely. Well, I'm all for defectors. That's what I call them. Defectors from the Illuminati over to our side. That's a fabulous thing, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised if their kids are rebelling. There are a lot of people. In fact, some of the whistleblowers that we get are coming over from the Illuminati. Those people often will not come forward under their own name. You know, they will not reveal who they are, but they will give us information. We have fabulous information from some of those people.
Okay, let's go to this side for a change.
Okay, we're on. Has anybody ever told you why they want to kill most of the population of this earth? What's their reason behind it? Why they want to pollute the earth?
Yeah, they basically want to take over the planet. In other words, the Illuminati want a small population so that they can live well, you know, beautify the environment, allow the earth to heal itself while they're here. What they also are very obsessed with is longevity. They're busy working on living forever, devising a technology that will allow them to do that. They're very based in the material realm. That's one of the key things to do with, you know, black magic and Illuminati. It's all about power over others, and they're obsessed, in essence, you could say they're obsessed with gold. They're obsessed with you know, greed and being on top and being the best that they can be to the expense of others, as opposed to working for others. Rather, their service to self versus service to others. So this is part of what they're doing. The other thing is that the ETs behind them, like the reptilians, who are real. I've seen one. I've seen a few of them, but I've seen one when I'm totally awake. And I have to tell you, at the time, I didn't believe they were true either. I didn't believe there was such a thing. I thought it was a joke. But this reptilian, who was one of their royalty, who flew by with wings, and I was just about to go into a meditation in an interdimensional, I got a flash, and there was a real entity that flew by me, and he wanted me to know that they are real. No doubt about it. They want to rule the earth. They want control of the earth. They consider it theirs. They are very much, as a culture, service to self, the reptilians. Now, that doesn't mean that every reptilian out there is a service to self. There actually are some defectors and some groups that are moving over to service to others. You know, it's a complex puzzle. The Greys work for the reptilians. Okay. The negative side of the Anunnaki is interested in taking back the earth. They, you know, basically they feel, and I think a lot of humans feel, that we made a mess of it here. We're still, you know, in touch and kind of work together every once in a while on small things, on even contacting certain whistleblowers. We have an interview we haven't released that we have no way of vetting, but it's kind of a borderline case, but we may be releasing in the future together. He's a great guy, and I'm in full support of his work.
What I'd like to suggest, Kerry, is we take 3 more questions. Okay, we have one over here, and then one over there, and one over here. Okay.
Okay.
And let's wrap it up, because I think
that's fine. Absolutely. You've all been very gracious, and thank you for staying so late. I'm sure that, I mean, you're freezing like I am.
Kerry, as you are in South Africa, have you contacted Peter Woodward? Because there is bad news about him that he's financially very, very down, and the government, our government, is definitely suppressing him. So I think he needs some support.
I agree with you. I would love to interview him. I understand he's quite a distance away from here, and unfortunately I have a limited amount of time this time around. But I would certainly have loved to interview him while I was here. If it was possible, I would have done it. As far as helping him out, we could start a collection on Project Camelot, or if I don't know how he has a website or anything like that, but yeah, there's sort of logistics as to getting money to him from our situation. I don't know how that would work, but if somebody has an idea on it and wants to help with that situation, we do have a reach out there. One thing that has been going on, Bill Ryan and I are sort of partners in a loose sense of the word, but we work a lot more separately nowadays than we did 4 years ago, simply because he is based in Switzerland and I'm based in the US. And it became very costly for me to keep going back and forth and for him also. And so at this time, he's also pursuing things in a little different line of inquiry than I am. I tend to go out in, I guess we were diverging in our areas of interest. I'm much more open to certain things than he is. That's how I would phrase it. But I do know that he did put a call out to help Credo, and it was a link to, I believe, David Icke's website, where David is, I think, doing something for Credo to collect funds. So I believe Bill did make an effort. I haven't actually, pitched in that way at the moment, but I certainly can do, and I believe that's a worthy cause, absolutely.
There's a comment here.
I'd just like to make a comment that I have had passed on to me, that in Credo's case, within his family, he is being watched, has been reported on, and every penny he gets is going to take. That is what I believe.
Okay.
Okay, there's another question over here.
All right, well, if that's true, it's a tragedy. There's a lot of craziness been going on around Credo of late. And I there's some behind the scenes things that have been going on. This is something that does go on. I mean, you have to be understanding of this. In many ways, Credo Mutwa is a whistleblower. He's, he's a threat to the powers that be. This is the way they take somebody down. They hit you financially. That's definitely a way they go. Another way they go is to put out rumors about you and make people believe that you're, you've become some diabolical character in some form or fashion. A lot of times they're lies. In fact, my policy is anytime somebody tells me, don't believe this person, they're not, they're lying, they're not to be believed, I basically go straight for that person because I figure there's something worth hearing. And I would encourage people, do not close your minds. Do not take somebody else's opinion of somebody or something. At this time, that's the worst thing you can do. You have to do your own homework. You have to investigate on your own. You have to look through the veil. It's all up to you to do that. Don't listen to others. Don't be misled. You can go on the internet and find dirt about everyone. Any famous person out there is going to have lies put out by people. Michael was told all sorts of lies about me before I got here. Really?
Yeah, she's a bad one-to-one. Don't believe a word she says, and so am I. I'm stealing millions.
And I was told things about him. So there you go. People will try to divide and conquer. That's a common tactic.
Well, about the Credo thing, I mean, some of you may have heard that I've been accused of stealing millions of rands from Credo Mutwa. Oh. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you come, I will welcome you to come visit me anytime to see where I've spent it. So, another question over here.
Hi, I'm very involved in the music industry because I own my own recording studio, and one of my singers came across the Vigilant Citizen. I don't know if you've heard of him. Basically, he's very involved with symbols and stuff like that, and he's identified and on his site you can actually go to the Vigilant Citizen. He said that the music industry is actually dominated by the Illuminati, and that like Jay-Z are very involved with these people. And I just wanted to know if you guys know anything about that, how much truth is in that?
Musicians are the messengers of the devil, right?
No. I mean, actually, Michael's a musician.
It's probably one of the finest dam-busting projects and exposure projects ever launched. And I suggest you go home and log on to projectcamelot.org. and discover a new world of information that blows open every single conspiracy you've ever heard of. Information that you can't even believe exists, all exists on projectcamelot.org. And the person behind that is this lady here, Kerry Cassidy. A big round of applause. Thank you. Over the last few years, Kerry and her partner, well now her ex-partner, Bill Ryan, have interviewed some of the most controversial figures in world politics, secret societies, contactees, ufology, politicians, you name it, they've interviewed them and got a body of evidence of human history and what's going on in the universe that truly blows the mind. So I think Kerry is going to just take this, we're going to wing this here really, she's going to show you a bunch of stuff, but my main reason to bring her here, because she was in South Africa, to come to look at our ancient civilizations and the stone ruins of Southern Africa and the link to the Anunnaki, because as Kerry says herself, she's on the trail of the Anunnaki, trying to find out where the hell they were at, what they were up to, and we believe we've got the evidence of the Anunnaki right here. So over to Kerry Cassidy and question time as well. Thank you very much, Kerry.
Hi there. I really appreciate you guys staying all the way through. I can't even imagine how you could sit through everything and freeze to death in the process. I live north of, just in Southern California, and this temperature is you know, really blowing my mind. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is play something, very short thing, just an introduction. Can you raise your hand if you have not heard of Project Camelot? Oh my God, okay, so we have a crowd of neophytes, just kidding. But at any rate, this will introduce you briefly to us, and we cannot put this on film, so we cannot release this to the internet or on DVD because it has copyrighted music beneath it, but it is a trailer for a Project Camelot interview we did. We interviewed an indigo child called Boriska. We went all the way to Russia, to Moscow and to Leningrad, and interviewed Boriska. And it was quite an unbelievable experience. Okay, so that was Boriska, and he is a fascinating child. He was a child who had total past life recall of a life on Mars. And he just started talking to his mother and to the villagers in a small town in Russia all about his prior life on Mars, how he was flying spaceships and how wars were happening on Mars and how they were turning Jupiter into a second sun, and how their civilization was destroyed, and then how he reincarnated on Earth. And he also used to walk the streets of the small town and give advice about healing, about how they could live better lives. And this is when he was 7 years old and younger. And then as he grew older, he sort of became more human-like, if you will. We interviewed him when he was 12, and he was not remembering as well some of the things he had actually done and talked about, but he had seen future scenarios of what was going on Earth. He is what's called an indigo child, and those children are plentiful around the planet at this time. They're often called indigos or crystal children. They're different.
Jaguar outside my door.
It should get the blood circulating. If you can't do 40 push-ups, there's something wrong with you. That gives me great pleasure to introduce a very special guest, an unexpected guest really, that's come all across the Atlantic. And a few years ago I was introduced by my friend DJ and Mervyn over here, who's our orb expert, our resident orb expert, and Mike van Niekerk. And while I'm at this, I want to first also thank all the people that have been involved in helping put this together, from Al in the front, and Mervyn and DJ and Willem and Mike van Niekerk and whoever else. Thank you, and Daryl, for helping to put this together, and you know, the little things that we forget. Thank you very much for your help and assistance. These things are not easy to put together, and it takes a lot of coordination and a lot of little things. And so a few years ago I was introduced to this thing called Project Camelot, and it suddenly opened up a whole new world to discovery. And for those of you that do not know about Project Camelot, I don't know what you're doing here. Obviously you came to see Willem. So thank you for coming. Project Camelot is
Different age groups. Some of us, even in the audience, will be early indigos. I consider myself one. We will be people that came to the planet with certain knowledge about the future, about what's going to be happening in 2012, about Earth changes, and so on. And so now, Project Camelot. I'm just going to go through stuff very quickly here. Most of the time when I address a crowd, they know who we are and what we do. I did see that, you know, I'm in South Africa, and I do understand that a lot of people came to see Michael Tellinger and Willem. I can't speak his name very well, Willem, and so on. So, but these are going to be slides that will sort of introduce you to what we do. We basically, about 4 years ago, put together a project in which I was a filmmaker, and my partner that I had just met, Bill Ryan, that you see in this short film, we met. I picked up a camcorder, and he was a webmaster. He was representing a project called Serpo.org, and he had become the webmaster. I had picked up a camcorder, consumer grade, and just decided to start doing interviews. I had been working in Hollywood for over 19 years. I was writing screenplays, sci-fi screenplays, trying to write a screenplay, in fact, about the Anunnaki. And I got frustrated. I was trying to package movies. I got the rights to an option, what's called an option on the rights, to make the Wingmakers movie, which was based on wingmakers.com. A very popular cult website that I encourage all of you to take a look at. It's still out there, very interesting story. There's a book associated, music, paintings. But it's all about a scientist who was part of the Black Project, who escapes from the Black Project, who discovers information about an alien civilization that was trying to warn the humans of a future invasion by a race of robots that were intent on taking over the Earth, and he was basically bent on preventing it. So were this group called the Wingmakers. At least that's the story on the wingmakers.com website. So at any rate, I pitched that. I got some places with it. I took it to Spielberg, who was already aware of the project, through his development person, Kathleen Kennedy. I took it to James Cameron, and the director of the Terminator, and I also got it to Ridley Scott, and it was turned down everywhere. But it was a great, great story, and so I figured at that point I really needed to do something else. I couldn't approach changing the world the way I wanted to at that time to make movies and change people's mindsets. So like I said, I picked up a consumer-grade camcorder. I started going to UFO conferences, thinking I would interview people, especially the speakers, just put a camera in their face, do guerrilla filmmaking, and I had been to film school and so on, studied directing, studied acting, and so that was my background. When I met Bill Ryan, I interviewed him. These are some of the people we've interviewed. over the years. He was from England, and he, like I said, he was a webmaster. So I was a writer, he was a writer. We put our skill sets together. We decided to that we wanted disclosure. We wanted to have the government and have the world become aware of the alien presence or the presence of ETs on our planet, and as well as break the truth out about a lot of things, basically.